Exorcism movies. How many of these have I covered on my channel? I can't really count at this point. How many of these movies get made every year that nobody really wants to see? You could say I'm not really a fan of the exorcism genre, or the adjacent demonic possession or demon horror movies, but there is an exorcism movie that I really enjoy, and I'd go so far as to call it the best exorcism movie of my lifetime. Today we'll be talking about The Last Exorcism. This movie isn't your run-of-the-mill exorcism movie with Russell Crowe trying to exorcise a demon, then turning into a demon and flying and blood flying everywhere. No, this movie is quite a bit different. So today we're going to dive into this movie, and of course I will be spoiling the entire film, so if you haven't seen The Last Exorcism, go check it out. I recommend. If you look the movie up, you're going to notice that it has a 5.7 out of 10 on IMDb, which is absolutely nonsense. It's almost inexcusable. We're going to be diving into why I think that the ratings are so low. So buckle up as I spend the next 20 or 30 minutes praising a movie made in 2010 that nobody really liked or went to see. And I'll explain why everyone's wrong about it. As I said earlier, The Last Exorcism isn't your run-of-the-mill exorcism film. Those atrocities sometimes have higher ratings than this movie, which does not make sense to me. The Last Exorcism is also a found footage movie. Let me explain. The Last Exorcism follows a pastor hiring a film crew to follow him to an exorcism of all things, so that he can debunk the idea of exorcisms as a whole. The Last Exorcism is honestly more mockumentary than it is found footage, and more mystery thriller than horror. Don't get me started on the trailer selling this movie as a trashy, scary exorcism film with demons flying about that caused the film to attract an entirely wrong audience. The Last Exorcism begins with us getting to know a reverend by the name of Cotton Marcus. Honestly, he's your average evangelical southern pastor, preacher type thing, at least from the outside, but that's not actually the case. It turns out Pastor Cotton is quite disillusioned with Christianity at this point in his life. He explains his dissatisfaction with some personal anecdotes about how God never answered his prayers and was never really there for him, especially when his son was born sickly and almost died, and instead of God and his prayers being answered, the doctors saved his child. Now, we can get into the argument that maybe God sent these blah 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 blah. None of that matters. This is just how he feels. Him being disillusioned and turning away from God isn't the focal point, though. He has a goal. He wants to dismantle the belief system in exorcism by exposing it as fraudulent.
What I want to do is expose exorcism for the scam that it really is. And that's why we're doing this. So if I can help expose it for what it really is, and save one kid from having a plastic bag wrapped around his face.
He explains the exact purpose when he shows a newspaper clipping that shows that a 9-year-old autistic child was killed during an exorcism. He assumes it's all BS and these are indoctrinated religious fanatics. For good reason, too. I don't mean that as in I believe what he says, but for good reason for him. Cotton grew up with a father who is a reverend and was practically preordained himself to fill that role. He also happens to be extremely good at it. You see, Cotton is very charismatic, which is very important in this particular charismatic denomination of the Deep South.
No, there's so much so not listening. I can talk about anything. I can talk about my mom's banana bread recipe. You don't think so?
You know, if you take 2 ripe bananas, you put them in a bowl, and you put some sugar, and you go ahead and bake it for 400, you can go and pull it out and have yourself banana bread. Hallelujah! Hallelujah!
Patrick Fabian's also the perfect fit for Cotton, and without him, I probably wouldn't be making this video because the movie would not be that good. Anyway, Cotton has been doing exorcisms since he was a child, which is crazy. With a lifetime of demonic exorcisms under his belt, only fueling his disbelief, in the end coming to the conclusion that they're all mentally ill people who are just expressing their illness through the same spiritual lens they would view the world around them. Cotton doesn't think that religion itself or Christianity is evil, nor does he entirely disavow exorcism. He thinks it can be beneficial, but the problem is he doesn't believe in it, and he wants to make sure people don't get hurt. I mean, that's why he's still preaching at the church whenever this documentary starts, because he feels like it helps people, even if it's meaningless for him.
So for the last something odd years, you've just been a fraud.
That's your word, not mine. I wouldn't say that. I would say that for the last couple of years, what I've been doing is doing what I've always been doing, which is delivering a service for a person who needs it in a way that they need it. I'm not saying I'm a doctor, but I am saying that I helped heal people from what ailed them.
Cotton is full of these contradictions throughout the movie, too. I'll try not to spend forever dissecting his character. Cotton himself doesn't just come across as a very intelligent and nice person. He's also very uppity and just full of himself throughout the intro of the movie. Giving himself all the credit instead of God is a pretty good example of that. Cotton isn't entirely a jaded pastor, afraid to move on, but he has no plan.
Yeah, I'm gonna miss this. Maybe I'll sell real estate.
After they interview Cotton and we get to know him, he goes to check his P.O. box and gets a letter from someone who needs assistance, an exorcism, and he needs to make a documentary. Cotton and the film crew pack up and start driving to the small town in deep southern Louisiana. We sort of get an homage here whenever they arrive to this town to the Blair Witch of all things, when Cotton starts interviewing the locals about folklore and silly things that they believe. It more so serves the point he's trying to make, that these local people are less than and believe in all these dumb, silly folklore and stuff. It's pretty slimy. That's when I say that Cotton is very uppity. The problem is, at the same time, these kind of people that he's talking bad about or putting down in this instance are the same people who give Cotton his own self-worth by listening to his sermons and celebrating him in the church. The whole movie is honestly about a bunch of different contradictions in the things that we believe and how we view the world. Cotton and his film crew head down this dirt road towards the home when a strange redneck kid just comes out of the way and is a major asshole to them, just to learn when they reach the house the father's like, oh, that's my boy, Caleb or something. The son in this movie is also disillusioned by religion and honestly fits a similar mold to Cotton, and this is due to the father of the house being very overbearing about religion and just controlling his children, basing all of his choices on Christian dogma. We'll get into that shortly, but for now, the dad shows Cotton and the crew around explaining to them the things that have been happening around here. His daughter's been acting like a nutcase. His farm animals have been getting gutted and killed. Cotton's like, are you sure this wasn't an animal? He's like, when an animal lacerate the belly of a cow open and just leave its guts hanging there? It obviously points to the daughter, even more so when the dad's like, yeah, I've been finding these bloody dresses around that she was wearing her skirts. He goes on to claim that she does not have any recollection of what happened, doesn't even remember doing it. We immediately have a conundrum here. Is she truly possessed like the father believes? Or is she acting out like Cotton and her brother and the film crew believe? I think a lot of people went in this movie expecting like a spooky, scary exorcism movie when they got a movie that was much more about studying people. It's like a film about people and how they interact with the world. I don't know how to describe it right now. No matter how you view the world, you can see yourself throughout the film standing in the middle and being pulled between both characters and both ideologies. After a bit of learning about the family, Cotton finally sits down and talks to the daughter. I think her name's Nell. The actress who plays her, I don't think has been successful in anything since this film, but she was practically made to fit this role. She also has this essence about her where you can kind of see the darkness in her eyes, probably because of makeup. It makes her look tired. But you can also just see that she looks really innocent, like she's just a farm girl who's has an overbearing father. During the questioning, we learn a lot about the family. It turns out that their mother died a few years ago of cancer, unexpectedly, and the dad has been trying to push away the outside world to protect his family ever since. I mean, he's doing this all on his own. Is it just a family that is experiencing trauma that hasn't healed yet? And grief, or is there something bigger at play here? The dad is disillusioned with society like Cotton is disillusioned with doctors, because ever since his wife died, he blames the doctors for not saving his wife and thinks that his faith wasn't strong enough. That's only bolstered his faith since then, reinforcing his belief in God and now trying to put everything towards that. Cotton's son ends up living and it pushes him away from God. This man's wife ends up dying and it pulls him towards God. Learning about the girl's past trauma and seclusion from the world that she faces due to her father causes Cotton to become very skeptical about the situation. Cotton assumes that this is just the fault of an overbearing father, pushing his grief and problems onto his family. So he goes ahead and calls for the exorcism to go down that night. We learn a lot about Cotton during this when he sets up this exorcism, because he has the girl put her feet in some water and obviously dump something in the water to make it bubble and boil. And the girl is totally eating into it. So is the dad. The brother ends up seeing, so you're like, oh no, the brother's going to expose Cotton as a fraud. But no, turns out the brother actually likes Cotton now because Cotton is like, oh, this is all bullshit too. After the water incident, the family is like, yeah, we need to do the exorcism right now. So we see Cotton obviously setting up a bunch of illusions to make the family really believe that this exorcism's real. Cotton thinks that if he can make the exorcism look real, because he doesn't believe that exorcisms are real, he can manage to actually help or heal the the family if they think that the demon's gone. He uses things like fishing line and speakers to play scary noises. We as the audience see all of this beforehand, so it puts the film in its own weird territory here from here on. This isn't your average exorcism movie with stupid people flying around, as I said, or fire and brimstone CGI. The ending sort of flips that on its head. We will get there. Anyway, the exorcism goes over splendidly.
I command thee to be gone!
Oh, no, demon. Don't listen at all. No.
I love how theatrical it is. You feel like you're inside of something, like you're watching a prank show or something, as awful as that sounds about this subject. Not only does it show that Cotton truly cares about people and wants to help them because that's what he thinks he's doing, but it shows how jaded to faith he is that he'd be willing to do something like this. Taking money for lying to people is evil, but he has good intentions, really cementing him as an anti-hero. Cotton leaves thinking it's job well done after the exorcism. The family couldn't look any happier, and they go and stay at a motel for the night. One problem, the demon girl shows up to his room in the middle of the night. She's completely out of it and comatose doing weird stuff. So the film crew and Cotton are like, what the hell? How did she even find us? Which, I mean, this is kind of a silly moment in the movie because they're in a small town, so there's probably only one motel near. So let's ignore that. They take her to the hospital and they run a bunch of tests on her, figure out that nothing is wrong, at least in that moment. And the next day we see the father show up. Cotton is sitting there trying to talk to the father and the doctor and saying that she needs to get a psychological evaluation because Cotton truly believes that this girl is mentally unwell. He doesn't believe that there's a demon responsible for all of her actions. Instead, the dad tells Cotton to fuck off and takes his daughter out of there and leaves. This leaves Cotton in a bit of a peculiar dilemma where he wants to help this family and still wants to prove that possession and exorcisms are BS. The dad cutting Cotton off and telling him to stick it where the sun doesn't shine leaves him out of options. The only thing to do is to talk to the local reverend at the church the family used to go to. Cotton heads out there, and these people are a little bit weird at first. They seem to be really interested in the idea of them making a movie.
I'm Reverend Cotton Marcus.
Hi, I'm
from
Becky.
Baton Rouge. Nice to meet you, Becky.
What y'all doing?
We're making a movie.
Oh, so will I be in it?
Yeah, you will.
Oh.
You guys making a movie? Am I gonna be in it? Anyway, Cotton sits down with the Reverend and gets to know a lot of backstory on the family. He really fills in every detail so far. This whole conversation just pushes the point that the girl is fine and not actually possessed. Cotton tries to get the Reverend to help, but the Reverend says that the dad won't like that and doesn't want him around. So Cotton will have to talk to the father and see if he can come over. If he does, he'll get her help, especially psychological help. It's back to the farm. And this is where all hell starts to break loose. The first thing they notice when they get to the house is the dad wrangling the daughter up and like being real forceful, being real rough with her. The reason for this manhandling is explained when they go inside and see the son has a massive cut across his face and is just leaking blood. The dad explains that the girl was freaking out. The brother tried to calm her down and she just cut his face. Cotton talks the dad into taking the boy to the hospital. After the dad leaves to the hospital with the son, Cotton goes upstairs and into the girl's room and immediately sees her chained to the bed.
Are you kidding?
Let's go find something to get her out of that.
While Cotton was trying to talk to the son wrote a note to Cotton. Cotton finally gets the chance to read it in this moment. All it says is, "Don't leave him alone with her."
Don't leave her alone with him.
That's why I wanted to stay.
There are two options for what this means. Either the son now thinks that this bitch is a demon, got a demon inside of her, or he thinks the dad is going to hurt her because he's abusive. Cotton starts interrogating the girl to try to get to the bottom of it. The father and son are gone for the rest of the night, and not much happens other than the girl doing slightly freaky shit. She starts making weird voices and acting crazy. This can all be read as her acting out due to abuse, though. But then a bombshell is dropped on the group when Cotton picks up the phone and it's the hospital.
Hi, this is Dr. Kyle from the Wood Dental. Prescribed and did not know that she was pregnant.
Your underlying trauma.
All they told us was that she was pregnant. You don't know who she's pregnant by.
We're dealing with incest, okay?
Arius,
Abusing
can't
is.
go saying that sort of thing down here. It would ruin a person's
It's right
life.
there. It's
Understand?
obvious. I mean, it's
We
right
have
there.
to-
Turns out the girl was pregnant. She never goes anywhere. She's homeschooled and stays on the farm 7 days a week, leading Cotton and the crew to immediately throw some very heavy accusations towards the father. Incest in the South. Oh, song of the South. One other thing, when everyone goes to sleep that night, she steals the camera and smashes a cat to death with the camera. It's really visceral, which I mean is then showing us that, like, is she an abuse victim or is she demonic? This whole film, the first time you watch it, you're sitting there weighing it like, what's happening? I love the mystery aspect of this. The crew, realizing that she just killed the cat like that, thinks that now she's a legitimate danger. Who would have thought after cutting her brother that way? And decide to lock her in her room, just like the dad did. Anyway, she spends the night locked up and just talking. She's even speaking Latin, which is, concerning because she does not know Latin until the father and the son come back. The crew sees the son outside praying, which is weird because it shows that the meaning of the note may not have been about the father being abusive. Nonetheless, they go ahead and confront the father, who of course is like, there's no fucking way that she's pregnant. I didn't do anything creepy. It's my daughter, for Christ's sake. The dad immediately assumes that the girl has been defiled by a demon and begs Cotton to do another exorcism. Cotton, not believing at this point, tells him, like, there's no way, she needs to get medical help as soon as possible. The dad's like, no, bud, and pulls out a fucking shotgun and tells them that they have 5 minutes to get off the property or he's gonna shoot them. They go outside to leave, but of course their worry for the girl's safety puts them back inside. Upstairs, they hear a huge commotion, rush up, but there's no girl anywhere. The scene's one of the more telling to me because inside the room before they open the door, you hear stuff flying around the room and all the walls banging in every direction. So either she'd have to have something set up like Cotton did and be faking this on her own, or this bitch is possessed. They enter, don't see anyone, but then they notice her up on top of a wardrobe like a fucking weirdo. Jumps off and cuts Cotton in the face and starts running. I like this part because she crawls around like a monkey.
Now! Now!
They track the girl down and learn the dad is about to shoot her in the face if they don't do an exorcism. So Cotton reluctantly but eventually caves in and goes through with it. A real one this time, at least as real as it could be when the man doing it doesn't believe in God. He has a real come to Jesus moment when he realizes that he's doing the exact same thing that he set out to stop with the making of this documentary. This exorcism scene is very effective due to the actress playing Nell, the daughter. She's a flexible freak. People that are flexible freak me out. I can't even touch my toes. You guys are creepy. It bothers me, man, moving around like that. I had a girlfriend that would move her arm in weird, gross. I could barely look at you now. Exorcism goes on for a bit. It's pretty intense until the girl says something that throws Cotton off entirely.
I'll do something, Daddy. Reverend, how about a blowing job?
No.
Now, this is the moment where Cotton went from believing that she could truly be possessed to a light bulb over his head. He assumes immediately that the girl's acting out again with the rationale that a demon would know the word for blowjob. I'd assume a demon might want to throw you off its track, but Cotton's a skeptic, and it goes to show his inherent doubt about the whole thing. He quickly ends this. The girl's all crying and stuff. Cotton talks it over with the dad, who just eats the whole thing up and believes Cotton. The next day, the girl admits that she's pregnant, and it's not from her dad. It's from a kid in town. And the dad is like, oh, I know that kid. Still has a hard time believing that she snuck around and hooked up with some random kid in town, though. Cotton then brings in the local Reverend fella to help the girl out. I like the moment when they come into the house, though, having hindsight, because you second guess yourself about the Reverend and his wife. They act really uncomfortable on camera during this scene, which makes them seem untrustworthy, but the scene inside their church, they couldn't be more opposite to how they react to the camera. They both seem perfectly fine with it, even liking the attention or idea. I remember the lady's like, oh, can I be in the film? Am I gonna be in it? And now she's like really standoffish. That's that. Cotton saved the day, and the girl wasn't possessed after all. She was just acting out of grief and trauma. We even get happy music on their drive out of there, but that's not how it ends. When they enter the town, Cotton decides to make sure that everything's fine because he has a sneaking suspicion too, like the dad did. And he stops by at the local diner where the kid who supposedly got Nell pregnant works. Good thing they did too, because, well, maybe not for them, because when they sit down with him, you can immediately notice this kid is extremely gay, like the gayest person you'll ever see. Not actually, but he's pretty gay. He says so himself, and Cotton's like, oh fuck, I messed up.
I don't even know the girl. We met once. Saw me and she started talking to me for, maybe like a minute. Okay? Yes, I'm sure. I didn't get her pregnant though. And another thing, she's nice and everything, but I'm not exactly interested in,
They make a run for it to their car and drive as fast as they can to get back to that farmhouse. When they get there, it's nighttime and no one's around. Eventually make it inside the farmhouse. It's just completely dead silent, and there's fucking pentagrams drawn everywhere and other demonic sigils, which is, of course, a cause for concern. They go back outside and see a fire off in the distance and hear chanting. Now, let me summarize the ending. It turns out the girl was possessed and was meant to birth a demon baby or a demon into this world for this devil-worshipping cult. Could have to do with like the end of the world or something. Cotton's character has this redeeming moment in it where he just charges in when the baby's being born with a crucifix. It's a really cool scene. I like seeing him finally admit and accept Christ and his purpose. When he charges into them with the crucifix held in the air, being engulfed in all this pandemonium and flames, that's a cool scene. I really like that.
Demon, you cannot have the soul of this girl, but demon, the creature of God! Move with the camera! Get him!
Dana, they're coming! Run!
The crew ultimately runs off, and we get a spooky first-person found footage scene of running from evil people where they immediately get killed, or ultimately, end of movie. I like this ending a lot more than other people do. I did read that there was originally a different ending and the film studio decided to change it. I don't know if it was for the better or not. I think my main reason for liking this movie is because Cotton as a character was, or at least I like the ending, is because Cotton was able to be redeemed in the end. I think the ending is of course tragic for everyone else and everyone around him, but it's very positive for him and him being the anti-hero of the movie. And it's also redeeming for the father because you realize that he was right all along, which makes it more tragic for him that this happened to his family. And also that the reverend, the local reverend of this church, the father was right about why he quit going to his church, because this guy leads a demonic fucking cult. Anyway, I really like this movie. I'd honestly give it like an 8.5 out of 10. That's how much I like this movie. This movie is very smart for a horror movie, especially about exorcisms. And it really connected with me whenever I was younger. I think I was a teenager when I watched it, probably like 14, back in like 2011 when it came out. But I like it even more so now. Now let's get to the point of why I think that this movie got such low ratings, or at least some of the reasons I think it did, at least from audiences. I think critics mostly got this one right. The main reason this movie had such low ratings is due to the original marketing for the movie. I never saw the trailers or commercials for this movie back in the day. I ended up just catching it by renting it at a rental place. Those were the days when people used to go to a store and rent DVDs or Blu-rays. I went to YouTube and watched the trailer right before I watched the movie, and my God, it could not sell the movie as anything more different than what it is. The trailers would have you believe that this is like a very stupid popcorn horror film. I'd barely classify this movie as horror in the first place. This movie was definitely like mystery thriller with an intelligent plot carried heavily by its characters. I think the people who watched the trailer and then were disappointed by this movie are probably just the lowest common denominator viewers in the first place. Simpletons and teenagers who go to the theater for the next butt horror movie release. These people are like, who cares if the movie that I'm about to go watch average score is a 3 out of 10? Did you see that crazy jump scare in the trailer, bro? These are not people that should be reviewing movies. I'm not trying to call them stupid for not understanding, because I don't think this movie is the most intelligent film ever, right? It's not even super smart. It's much smarter than something like the Friday the 13th remake, right? I think the problem is most people were complaining about how boring this movie is because they were expecting a jump scare shit fest, just a dog-ass movie, and they got something that was actually good, and they're like, oh my God, what am I watching? People talk? Like, when in reality what they got was like a rather slow and complex movie for the genre, especially for the genre. The next thing I saw was a lot of people bitching about how it was found footage, which is a dumb argument with hindsight to all the found footage movies that would come after. I think this movie being found footage is more a byproduct of the script than the fact the director wanted to hop onto the found footage bandwagon. I think the idea of Cotton creating this documentary gives a pretty good explanation of why the camera's there. So they shoot it that way. My other theory is perhaps audiences were just legitimately stupid in 2010. 80% of the negative reviews I saw on the film were from that time period when the movie came out. One of the common complaints I saw was that it was found footage, but it was edited. So a found footage movie can't be edited. Do you know how fucking stupid that is? Like, actually use your brain and think. Do you know how dumb that is? I saw that in like 15 different reviews. And I did not dig through the reviews to find that. I bet if you hit Control F and find on that page, you're gonna find hundreds of them. Why is the movie edited, but it's supposed to be found footage? Why'd you edit the footage up, brother? Are you that, like, there's nothing more stupid than that. Wow. We got some dummies. No shit, movies are edited, dude. I think that all the people that say that people are less intelligent than they've ever been because of technology, go read reviews about old movies from the time period when they came out. Those people are clueless. Clueless idiots judging something without even understanding it, which is the worst kind of judging. Does every movie you watch have to be believable? Is this movie depending on tricking you that it's a real event? Absolutely not. This movie is not doing that. It's a fucking movie. These people would lose their minds if they figured out the reality TV is fake. Looking back at the movie now, though, in 2024, it's aged remarkably well compared to a lot of the things that came out in the late 20-aughts, the 2010s. I think this movie is an example of found footage done very well. And of course, the actors all did great. The dad, the daughter, and Cotton. The film crew aren't on camera very much, and they kind of suck. And the son is weird. His acting scenes are a bit strange in this movie. I think that the church people do a pretty good job of just appearing like real people. A lot of the complaints I saw about this movie were people complaining about the entire point of the film. A lot of people were talking about how they spent so much time on pointless things and talking about pointless things, missing the entire fucking point of what they're talking about. This movie is about doubt. The father doubting the outside world and its influences on the daughter, Cotton doubting God and his job or exorcisms. The son is doubting the same way, and his father's influences and decisions. The girl isn't necessarily a focal point of the story. There are a lot of moments where the movie tries to sow doubt in something it just tried to push. It tries to push the idea that Cotton is right and that the girl's not actually possessed, and then it sows doubt to make you believe that maybe she really is possessed, like when the brother's praying. It's not necessarily an exorcism movie, even though it's called The Last Exorcism. The Last Exorcism is just the title because this is going to be Cotton's last exorcism. I think that the idea of the exorcism is just to take the idea of a play on faith, exploring the idea of faith and people losing their faith or gaining their faith. And it's not just faith in God. It could be faith in normal things, like the father losing faith in modern medicine and doctors and other people and becoming reclusive. This movie goes down so many roads of discussing different ideas and the exact opposite of that. It's a constant match of, is this real or is it not? Is this what's happening or is this what's happening? It's constantly playing with those ideas and constantly making you question what's going to happen. I think everyone that viewed this movie so harshly certainly missed the point of the film, and I'm just going to hope that that all comes down to the fact that it was bad marketing. It seems like this movie was played to the wrong audience, and its marketing was a complete misfire. It's probably a good example of how not to market your film. You don't want to promise something and not deliver on it. I think in the horror genre especially, there's not enough people trying new things, especially with some of the genres in horror. And I think that the exorcism style horror or demonic possession style horror hasn't done much different in a very long time, at least at that time of 2010. Now there might have been some B movies or small time movies that or indie films that have came out that do this even better. I don't know, I haven't seen them. If you have, let me know about them down below, especially in this genre. It's not a genre I really like in general. I've always held this movie to a higher regard than others because of the fact that it sticks out in this genre and does something different. If you see a movie that like just came out last year, The Exorcism Believers, you're going to go in and get an awful movie. Like, nobody wants to see these anymore. It's overdone. It's boring. I think The Last Exorcism was one of those movies that truly tried to do something different and tell its own story in a genre where nobody tries to do that. There was another movie a couple years ago, Bodies, 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 that a lot of people didn't like because it wasn't scary, but I thought the movie was funny. It was a play on like teen slasher films where it just turns out that all the kids are dying by accident because they're afraid of nothing. That movie's very silly. It's, what do you call it when you're trying to play on someone's reaction or expectations? You're subverting people's expectations by giving them something that they don't expect. Instead of someone running around and murdering everyone like you think for the entire movie, it's actually just the kids are being idiots and dying themselves. That movie very much fits into that comedy, horror, mystery, thriller mark too. Very similar in my opinion, but that movie's much more trying to be funny by picking on Gen Z kids. Anyway, that was The Last Exorcism, a movie that does not deserve any of the negativity that it got, other than perhaps the ending. I could understand why people would drop their scores down to a 6 or 7 out of 10, or even a 5 out of 10, based off of how the film ended. Would it have been better to end it as if this all was just a hoax played by a mentally unwell girl who's being abused? Maybe, but I think what we're left with is a movie that tried to do something different and did it pretty well. How can I say this? A lot of people with rocks in their heads instead of brains are going to be upset by this video. You should go watch something else. Anything else, really. I'm sure they'll make another Chucky movie that you'll probably enjoy. That might have been too mean. But that's all. Thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed the video, drop me a like and subscribe to the channel. If you have any other interesting films, as I said, that try to subvert a certain genre, let me know down below. Until then, I'm going to figure out what the hell other video I'm going to make and what I'm going to talk about. I'll see you guys next time. Peace out. Don't forget to subscribe.